On India Upfront, viewers, the biggest story of the day, an all-out crackdown on hate, cutting across ideological divide, party and religious lines. The Delhi police has booked politicians, clerics, activists for their alleged hate messages and statements that are insightful and hurt religious sentiments. Among them are AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi, BJP suspended leader Nupur Sharma, controversial seer Yati Narsinghanand. You remember him, viewers. He addressed the Dharam Sansad. Journalist Sabah Naqvi. Viewers, let me go through each one of these names and tell you what these individuals have been booked for. So Asaduddin Owaisi, AIMM chief for hate speech. Nupur Sharma, suspended BJP leader for derogatory remarks against the Prophet. Naveen Jindal, again an expelled BJP leader, derogatory tweet against the Prophet. Shadab Chauhan hailed the Taliban for taking over Kabul. Sabah Naqvi, Delhi-based journalist, posted a meme against the Shivling. Maulana Mufti Nadeem, a cleric, he threatened to gouge the eyes out of those who had moved court. In the Gyanvapi issue, he also threatened to chop their hands off. Pooja Shakun of the Hindu Mahasabha, objectionable remarks against namaz. So as you can see, viewers, this action cuts across both political lines, ideological lines, and of course, religious lines. So it is a pretty secular crackdown. Now, viewers, if you really look closely at each of these offenses, then they fall under certain sections of the IPC. Section 153A of the IPC, promoting enmity on grounds of religion, which carries a maximum 5-year jail term or a fine. There you can see. Section 295 of the IPC, damage of a place of worship or sacred object, 2 years in jail and or fine. Section 298 of the IPC, deliberate intent to hurt religious feelings, which is 1 year jail and or a fine. Section 504 of the IPC, 505 of the IPC, intentional insult to provoke breach of peace, offense in any place of worship or assembly, and Section 506 of the IPC, punishment for criminal intimidation. All these sections carry varying jail terms between 2 years to 7 years. But the crackdown is being mocked as balancewad and one-sidism. Not my words. There they are on your screens, words that have been coined by Asaduddin Owaisi. Just let's take you over what he has said. He said, the police are suffering from both sidism and balancewad syndrome. FIRs didn't specify what the crime is or which remark attracted the crime. Police lacks courage to pursue cases on Yati, Nupur and Jindal. Police making it look like there was hate speech on both sides. Also, he says, didn't equate criticizing a hate speech and giving hate speeches. Muslims are jailed for the sole crime of merely being Muslim. So all these statements he has actually tweeted out. Owaisi isn't the only one. His co-accused political analyst Danish Qureshi has also alleged selective action. Listen in to what Danish Qureshi had to say.
अभी तक किसी प्रकार की कोई जानकारी नहीं मिली। मीडिया के माध्यम से, टाइम्स नाउ चैनल के माध्यम से मुझे ये पता चला है कि भाई कुछ 30-31 लोगों के खिलाफ मामले दर्ज हुए हैं। उन 30-31 लोगों में एक मेरा भी नाम है। दरअसल दिक्कत क्या है कि हेट स्पीचर्स को काउंटर देना और हेट स्पीचर्स होना, इन दोनों चीज़ों में फ़र्क है। हम हमारे देश में देख रहे हैं कि हेट्रेड फैलाने वालों को रिवॉर्ड दिया गया भारतीय जनता पार्टी की तरफ से। आप देख लीजिए नंबर ऑफ क्रिमिनल्स, साध्वी प्रज्ञा हो चाहे दिल्ली राइट्स के आरोपी हों, वो सारे लोग किस तरह से भारतीय जनता पार्टी में जुड़ते हैं। जो लोग नफरत की राजनीति करते हैं, उनके बड़े बड़े सांसद पब्लिकली स्टेटमेंट देते हैं गोली मारो को, तो उनके नाम नहीं आते। उनके खिलाफ इंसाफ के हक में बोलने वालों को हेट स्पीचर्स की लिस्ट में डाला जा रहा है। ये बहुत बड़ा मतलब अफसोसनाक बात है।
Viewers, Owaisi and others who echo him or are ideologically aligned to his thoughts are plainly misleading India. The fact is that a section of minorities are using Nupur and Naveen's comments to spread Hindu phobia and are calling for beheadings, which is the maximum punishment for blasphemy according to their interpretation of the Sharia. And viewers, the latest instance of this comes from Jammu. Now we have highly edited, proscribed, censored, use any word, viewers, this particular tape. Because you see, in this country, if you put this stuff out, which exposes one community, you will be accused of spreading Islamophobia. That's where it has got to. So viewers, the more objectionable part of this rant by a cleric, and the cleric is standing there on that balcony and he's addressing the congregation, so to speak. This is what he says. Listen in, threatening, beheading, and all sorts of other delinquent crimes. Listen to this.
मेरे भाइयों, लेकिन सरू को कलम करना भी सिखाते हैं। तो इसलिए बातों को ज़हन में बिठा दो। हम खामोश तब तक है जब तक हमारा बर्दाश्त कायम है। बर्दाश्त से बाहर निकल गए तो फिर वो नुपुर शर्मा क्या, वो आशीष कोहली क्या, वो नुपुर शर्मा क्या, उनके सर कहीं और धड़ कहीं मिलेंगे। और मैं नबी का कलमे पढ़ने वाला मुसलमान खुद मैदान में आए। और ये फकवे भी हमारे दुश्मन, आरएसएस भी हमारी दुश्मन है। तो इसलिए मैं अंजुमन इस्लामिया की तरफ से तमाम अवाम का शुक्रिया करता हूँ। मैंने जैसे पहले ही अर्ज किया कि ये अमन को खराब करने वाले अनासिर हैं, कभी अजान पे कभी पर्दे पे। तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को चाहिए जो अजान के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े, अगर जो पर्दे के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े। ये गला नहीं पकड़ सकते तो हम गला काटने के लिए तैयार हैं। हम गला काटने के लिए तैयार हैं। और मैं बताना चाहता हूं, सबसे ज्यादा कम दर्जे का मुसलमान इतना ईमान रखता है, दुनिया के किसी भी ब्रिगेडियर, किसी भी ताकत गुस्ताख नबी का सर कलम कर सकता है।
Now viewers, remember what I told you about what Asaduddin Owaisi said. Asaduddin Owaisi said that Muslims are being jailed for the sole crime of merely being Muslims. This is what he said in his own tweet. Now viewers, if someone decides to arrest Adil Ganai, and I'm quite sure that whatever he has spewed today falls under all the sections of the law that I read out to you. So if you've forgotten what I told you, section 153A, 295, 298, 504 of the IPC, 505 of the IPC, and 506 of the IPC. By Asaduddin Owaisi's logic, if Adil Ganai, the person that you are hearing, is arrested, this will be one-sidism of the police. That means, viewers, that by arresting him, the police would be making an example out of Muslims, not cracking down on hate. That is what he said. By not calling out these extrajudicial calls for action against those accused of blasphemy, the ecosystem who guns for Hindu hate mongers is only pushing India down the road to religious obscurantism. What do these people want? An India where people who feel offended burn the object of their anger at the stake, chop their heads off Taliban style, chop their hands off PFI style. The fact is, viewers, in our great secular country, appeasing hate on one side of the fence has become the norm. And I'm not talking through my hat. I always back up everything I say with facts. Here are some examples of the so-called secular brigade appeasing communalists. The first fact: behead those who put Quran in Durga Puja Pandal. Abbas Siddiqui of the ISF. He's the chief of the ISF. Yet the left and the Congress allied with ISF in 2021 Bengal election. This is a fact. Another fact: the DMK openly backs for the release of Rajiv killer Pararivalan. After Pararivalan's release, CM Stalin embraced him. A section of the media viewers is called out for putting Nupur on air. But Pararivalan wrote an editorial for a prominent national daily. Yet viewers, Congress shares power in Tamil Nadu with the DMK. The DMK is an elected party which is tasked with upholding the constitution. Another fact: PFI, SDP are extremist organizations, but not banned. This was not said by me. Kerala High Court, May 2022. After several states, Centre also in process of banning PFI. Says SG Mehta to the Supreme Court, April 2021. Yet SDPI withdrew candidates against the Congress in 2018 Karnataka polls. Why did they do so? I don't know. I'm still looking for answers. Voting. Rights of Muslims should be taken away, said Sanjay Raut, Shiv Sena in 2015. Yet secular Congress and NCP share power in Maharashtra with the Shiv Sena. Another fact: come what may, I will never join hands with the AIUDF. For Tarun Gogoi, the AIUDF was a sectarian organization. Who was he? He was the then Congress Chief Minister, 2016 Assam. Yet Congress allied with the AIUDF for the 2021 Assam polls. There are several such examples. Viewers, the question we are asking: how is 100% accountability applied across the board? When people are booked across the board, how is this one-sidism? Let's open this up. Let's ask some basic questions. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, part of the panel tonight. Rashmi Samant, former Student Union President of Oxford University and human rights activist. We have with us Lokesh Jindal, leader of the Congress. Atikur Rahman, who is a analyst. Advocate Tala Amir Rashdi, spokesperson of the Rashtriya Ulema Council, who will be joining us, and Amana Begum Ansari, research and political analyst. Let me begin with you first, Dr. Ranganathan. What do you make of what Mr. Owaisi says today? Balancewad, sidism. What's happening here?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. Because, Rahul, you showed that really disturbing and spine-chilling video, can I please compliment our ex-Vice President, Mr. Hamid Ansari, for coining the euphemism, Dara Hua Musalman. Sheer genius on his part. All around us, all we see are Dara Hua Musalmans. From Jammu, where Dara Hua Musalmans are shouting from top of mosques that they will behead Nupur Tiwari and all those who oppose Azan and Hijab, to Hubli, where Dara Hua Musalmans are pouring onto streets because some Hindu kid photoshopped a Bhagwa flag. From Aurangabad, where Dara Hua Musalmans are rioting in the streets because someone Facebook post said Aurangzeb was a mass murderer. To Assam, where Dara Hua Musalmans are burning down a police station. Everywhere you look, we see Dara Hua Musalmans, Dara Hua. So thank you, Mr. Ansari, for being an oracle. And who can forget him presenting an award to the most Dara Hua Musalman, the PFI chief himself. Now, let me come to the issue at hand. Rahul, as a free speech absolutist, I condemn all these FIRs, blanket condemnation that have been filed against people who didn't make direct threats, without exception. Although I do appreciate that in the case of Nupur and Naveen, it might have been done to avoid them being whisked away and dumped in non-BJP ruled states that are shamefully clamoring to torment them. And you're absolutely right. There is hypocrisy on show galore. These same chauthi-failed dunderheads wanted an FIR on Nupur, even though no one has till now explained why they think her quoting the hadiths is blasphemous. But when Owaisi is also charged, they are outraging. But then we've seen it all before, haven't we? The hypocrisy of this diabolical cult, the latest entrant to which is Mr. Naziruddin Shah. He stood with MF Hussain, if you remember, when he drew naked fornicated to goddesses. But on Nupur he says, quote, the Indian government has acted too late. She was spreading poison. Her statement has hurt me, unquote. Itna doglapan kahan se late ho, Gulfam Hasan? I beg your pardon, Naziruddin Shah. Finally, Rahul, 30 seconds on Owaisi. Well, Owaisi thinks like his hero, doesn't he? Allama Iqbal, who said, quote, the mission of Islam is to purge the world of infidelity and worship of false gods, unquote. Rahul, fools are those who didn't understand Iqbal's mission and don't understand Owaisi's. We will either have a divided India or a destroyed India, had screamed Jinnah. He managed the former. Owaisi and his party are intent upon managing the latter. Owaisi is the Jinnah who doesn't eat bacon. Remember, he exhorted the annihilation of Kamlesh Tiwari. I quote him now. वो जालिम, वो कुत्ता जो उत्तर प्रदेश में बैठ के अल्लाह की शान में गुस्ताखी किया, याद रख, तू आज जेल में बंद है, मगर दुनिया तेरे लिए चूहे के बिल की तरह बन जाएगी इंशाअल्लाह. तेरी गुस्ताखी ने तेरी अपनी बर्बादी को दावत दी, unquote. And lo and behold, when Kamlesh Tiwari was ruthlessly beheaded, there was not a squeak of condemnation from Owaisi. And now he cries victimhood.
Well, viewers, we have to, as a nation, stop selectively shielding hate mongers, because calling out hate on one side is politically inconvenient. That cannot be. And that's really what Dr. Anand Ranganathan is saying with telling effect tonight. He says it quite bluntly. And truth always hurts, viewers. Remember that. It pinches. But we must rise above where we are going. Today we have hundreds and thousands of people who are otherwise very, very sensible, looking the other way, including some of the stars that Dr. Ranganathan has named. When people are going out there and saying, chop people's heads off. You see, we still have something called a law and a judicial system. And Atikur Rahman, I'm sure you don't want to become part of the mob that advocates cutting off people's heads. I'm sure, Lokesh Jindal, your party didn't mean to stand with the ISF chief. I am sure you were pained that the great SDPI PFI withdrew its candidates against yours. I'm sure you must be really upset when Shadab Chauhan came out and hailed the Taliban for taking over Kabul. I am sure you were very, very upset, sir, when Sanjay Raut said voting rights of Muslims should be taken away. Lokesh Jindal Saab, it must upset you that Sanjay Raut said that. Did it upset you? Did it hurt you?
I'll tell you what had hurt me the most. What had hurt me the most was a person in Gujarat after the Godhra riots who said, "Hamare liye hum do, hamare do, aur unke liye hum char, hamare 40." And the person because of whom the BJP lost the elections and because of whom Atal Bihari Vajpayee was kicked out of BJP goes on to become the Prime Minister of India, the role model for politicians, which young politicians like Nupur Sharma, Naveen Jindal wants to copy and thereby believe that spreading hatred all over the country brightens their political perspective. Now that's what has happened in this country. Since 2014, there has been some form of a competition going on amongst all the so-called wannabes who want to enter politics. That let us spread as much hate as possible.
Can I say something, if you don't mind? Can I say something, if you don't mind? If you don't mind. Only if you don't mind. Because when you start minding, I have to worry for my life. So only if you don't mind, I will say something. Can I say something?
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Okay. Mr. Jindal, I asked you a very simple question. You went on a rant against Modi. That is your prerogative. But you are today in power with a party that mongers hate. against people from Tamil Nadu. Dr. Ranganathan will tell you, he'll attest to that fact. As a Tamil, how it feels when the Shiv Sena stands and screeches against people who are outsiders, who come from the north, where Dr. Ranganathan works, or from Tamil Nadu, from where he hailed at one point.
I'm well aware of that.
So if you're well aware of it, what are you doing in power with the Shiv Sena? This god-awful, divisive force that you yourself... that you yourself defined. Your leaders have defined in the past. I'm not calling them god-awful. They themselves...
Let me tell you.
No, 1 second.
Let me tell you.
मैंने सवाल तो खत्म नहीं किया, sir.
But
I will quake and listen to you because you're a very powerful man and you can rouse people up against me and you will perhaps promote hate against me, so I'll keep quiet. Like a chua in the bill.
That's not my way, please.
Someone used that word, chua in the bill. I am very happy to be the chua in the bill. I don't want to stick my neck out over the parapet. बचेगा ही नहीं. तो मैं आपसे एक पूछना चाह रहा हूँ, लोकेश जिंदल साहब. It's a very simple question today. ठीक है, sir. Modi साहब became Prime Minister. You don't like him because you believe that he was one of the biggest instigators of riots. ठीक है, चलिए. Rajiv Gandhi also became Prime Minister and he justified violence against Sikhs. चलो, वो भी aberration था. Dumb voters did this. Very dumb voters did it. But sir, you are not dumb. You're the Congress party, the great Gandhian party. What are you doing with the Shiv Sena? Can you answer this question? Because Sanjay Raut said voting rights of Muslims should be taken away. In my book, that's a pretty hateful statement.
So here is the answer. The time when Shiv Sena formed an alliance with the Congress, that was the time period when Amit Shah was doing all forms of his Chanakya Niti. And Maharashtra was well aware of the centralization tendency of BJP. Now, erstwhile, Shiv Sena had been a BJP alliance partner, but then it chose Congress because it is well aware of how dangerous BJP is and its centralization tendency. And if you talk about NCP,
Jindal
Shiv Sena and Congress
you're
coming
as
together,
dangerous as the other Jindal. I'll tell you, you are as dangerous.
Please do not include me in those league of people at all. Just because I share the surname with them.
You can easily. You are as dangerous because you. No, 1 minute. You are mainstreaming. You are mainstreaming the antics of fringe players. In my book, anyone who says voting rights of Muslims should be taken away belongs to the fringe. And if you are bringing them into the center to defeat the BJP, what does that make you? You are conceding.
Sir, first of all,
tomorrow you will hold hands. Tomorrow you will hold hands with Yassin Malik.
But
I forgot. You did hold hands with Yassin Malik. Oh, sorry.
It came out with the
I made a mistake. My facts were wrong. You did hold hands with Yassin Malik. Where will you go? Where will you go to prove a point against Modi? How far will you go?
Yassin Malik was always supported by BJP, and we all know
always supported. Viewers, here you have a very eloquent spokesperson of the Congress party. Today he is not quoting Heidegger. Remember, he is not quoting some of the other Nordic scholars that he does very often on this channel.
I'm fine with it if you're ready to hear.
No, I don't, sir. I'll be very confused because clearly, sir,
don't be confused.
There is nothing philosophical about your thoughts. You are a rank opportunist, and you have proved it.
Absolutely not, sir.
Okay,
the
absolutely
whole idea
not.
Is
fair enough. I don't want to constantly focus on you, Mr. Jindal. Clearly, you don't have answers to give. Let me open this up further.
You give me the time, I'll answer every question of yours.
Sir, you have answered the questions by evading each one of them, and I'm happy that you can evade these questions.
Any question that you have asked.
I have asked you all 3 questions. You have still not told me.
Please allow me to answer.
You have said, no, you already answered.
Sir,
and your answers are eloquent. You have
Congress.
said to stop Modi. We have drunk the wish of hatred. And we have decided to hold hands with the Shiv Sena. That is your answer.
The idea of India that BJP embarks upon is a
fair enough. No, you can hold
language,
the. Okay,
culture,
so fine. Mr. Jindal, it's okay. Let me move on. Please, let me move on. You answered the question. You've been honest. Ki bhai, to stop Modi, we have clung on to Shiv Sena. It's okay. We understand your compulsions. It's okay. गद्दी के लिए कुछ भी करेगा कांग्रेस. That's fine. It's okay.
सर, देश के हित के लिए.
देश के हित के लिए आप उनके हाथ पकड़ोगे जो देश को विभाजित करना चाहते हैं. मैं भी थोड़ी बहुत हिंदी बोल लेता हूं. Okay, let's open this up further. Let's open it up further. Let's ask the basic question again. Atikur Rahman Sahab, how is 100% accountability one-sidism? Can you explain? If we were to arrest Mr. Ganai, Adil Ganai, who you just heard, giving a very eloquent address from the mosque in Jammu, would it be one-sidism, sir? Tell me. Would be arresting someone who describes and dishonors the shivling be one-sided action, sir? Simple two questions. I have nothing more to ask. Atikur Saab, please.
Mr. Rahul, as in my capacity as a lecturer in political science and researcher on Islamic studies, I have 2 points to make.
Sir, one question before you finish. No, before you finish, I just want you to tell us where, because there is an individual called Zubair something or the other. I don't know his name. He has a great problem. Every time you call a person on the show and call him an Islamic scholar, he gets very worked up. So can you just tell our viewers how you call yourself an Islamic scholar, which university you do research at, so your credentials are established so that people like some Zubair, some character, I don't know, some internet player or whatever it is. I think he might even be a video game designer. I don't quite know what he is, but he does make quite a bit of an impression. So I just want to ask you to clarify your bona fides.
Well, Zubair is partly right, because many times I have corrected many channels that I am not an Islamic scholar, Rahul. I am a researcher of Islamic studies on the basis of, as a lecturer in political science, I had 2 subjects in my final year, BA, that was Islamic studies and political science. I am a master's in political science from the Bombay University.
Wonderful.
I am a researcher. I was the research assistant of world-renowned Islamic scholar Dr. Rafiq Zakaria, who replied to Salman Rushdie's satanic verses. I have several books where when Dr. Rafiq Zakaria used to write those books, my name has a mention in those books.
Right. Sir, you are eminently more qualified than me, and therefore we welcome you on this panel as a bona fide spokesperson, and I congratulate you, sir, on the great achievements. Now can you answer my question? Thank you very much.
Rahul, along with this, I would like to clarify also that I do not represent even my neighbors as a Muslim.
Okay.
In my capacity as an individual, I speak whatever I have read, whatever I have researched.
Brilliant.
So point number 1 is, as far as the shivling is concerned, the Quran mentions, Rahul, do not revile the other faiths, lest they revile your faith in their ignorance. Second point is, it is incumbent on me to place before your audience that blasphemy in the Quran is only for Allah. Allah dislikes blasphemy, joining Allah's name with any other person, any other deity, any other God. La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God, Allah. Prophet, for the Prophet, there cannot be any blasphemy. We, as a Islamic researcher, we invite criticism against the Prophet, because when Salman Rushdie wrote the book, Dr. Zakaria wrote to Rajiv Gandhi's government, do not bend it, because he was very much to reply to the satanic verses, and he replied in the form of a book called Muhammad and the Quran, a reply to the satanic verses by Dr. Rafiq Zakaria. So we as Islamic researchers, we invite criticism against the Quran, we invite criticism against our Prophet and Allah, so that we can reply.
But you have made it very clear.
The only condition is we should get a fair chance to reply.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Rahman, you have made it, however, very, very clear that you do not believe that your faith allows anyone to revile another's faith. That you have made very clear. So, people that are being booked today for reviling the shivling or the other faiths in this country, they are being booked as per the law, there is no vendetta against them. Will you concede that point, Atikur Rahman Saab?
200%, but I would like to add a point
So
to
viewers,
it.
here you have a very erudite man, Atikur Rahman, who we respect for his great intellect, for the work he has done, calling out Owaisi.
10 seconds.
Calling out Owaisi as a person who is playing a political game. Dr. Ranganathan, give me just 2 minutes. I also want to bring in Advocate Talla Rashidi, spokesperson for the Rashtriya Ulema Council. Now, Mr. Rashidi, you heard Atikur Rahman and he made it quite clear to all of us that what Mr. Owaisi indirectly is saying is wrong. That the insults against the Shivlings are wrong and the people who are being booked insulting the Shivling deserve to be punished. And also, sir, that people like Mr. Ganai, Adil Ganai, deserve to go to jail, and it is not Islamophobic to send them to jail. Advocate Tala, Amir, please go ahead.
See, I'm not a spokesperson for Mr. Owaisi. That is the first thing. The other thing is that I don't know what are the charges under which Mr. Owaisi has been booked, so I cannot reply on that. And as far as the other thing is concerned, I would like to say that anyone, it can be anyone, it can be any XYZ, it can be Talha Amir, it can be any, it can be Rahul, it can be anyone who does an act that is against the law of the land, an act that hurts the feelings of the masses, an act that could be called as a hate speech, should be booked as per the law.
So,
what's the big deal in it? Why are we creating a havoc out of it?
No, I'm.
Now the case that has been booked today,
do you believe?
step,
No, 1
this
second.
step should have been taken.
Right, I got it.
10 or 15 days back.
I'm glad you've taken such an. I'm glad you've taken an enlightened position. Amir Saab, 1 minute. एक मिनट आमिर साहब मैं आपको पढ़ के बताता हूं जस्ट टेल मी व्हाट पार्ट ऑफ दिस यू डिसएग्री विद सी आई एम नॉट आस्किंग यू टू बी अ स्पोक्सपर्सन फॉर ओवेसी आप एडवोकेट भी हैं सो लेट मी जस्ट आस्क यू दिस इज व्हाट ओवेसी सेज cops are suffering from both sidism or balancewad syndrome. Now he's not talking about just him being booked, he's talking about, as I told you, other people who have also been booked like Sabah Naqvi and several others, Mr. Qureshi, etc. So what is one-sided or balancewad about booking these people? If prima facie,
what I'm saying, it's a balancewad.
How?
I didn't read his tweet. I don't know what he said, but this is exactly an attempt to balance the activities that the
Okay, Rashmi Samant, you can go ahead and ridicule the Shivling, and if people who do so are booked, then it's balancewad. It is okay. So great.
It's an attempt to balance that.
Okay, it's an attempt to balance. Fair enough. So let those people who are abusing the Shivling not suffer any consequences under the Indian laws, because if you do, then it is balancewad. Rashmi Samant, how do you respond to Tala Saab?
It's almost like, one rule for me, another for thee. For a very long time now, since independence, the minorities have actually shoved down pattarbazi, all kinds of, blasphemous, these kinds of punishments for blasphemy, beheading threats down the throats of the majority community in the name of tolerance. And for a very long time, the community has actually, ingested these things in the name of tolerance. Ki haan, hum tolerant hain. So for this very thing, we've been accepting these things. We've been taking it lying down. But for the very first time, when there's equal resistance to what's going on, and when everybody is treated the same, the minority suddenly want special treatment.
Okay.
And the fact that they're not getting
no question of special treatment, says Rashmi Samant. Let me bring in Amna Begum Ansari also. Miss Ansari, where do you come in on this? Do you believe that a crackdown? 1 second, Advocate Saab, please. Now let the other participant also speak, please. सर आपने बहुत बोला, कितना बोला आपने? अब अमना मैडम को भी थोड़ा बोलने दीजिए, प्लीज. Amana, 1 second. Amana Begum Ansari, I'm coming to you and I want to ask you. Do you believe that booking others who have ridiculed the Shivling is an act of Islamophobia, yes or no?
Definitely not. should be this should how any government should take the action, and there should be same yardstick for every community regardless the identity.
Okay.
If criticizing one community and one religion is a freedom of speech, so that should be applied to other community, or it both should be hate speech. We cannot go like this by selectively say that this is the freedom of speech and this is the
freedom of speech cannot be selective.
Yeah, and
very clear message.
Rahul, yeah, yes, give me 30 seconds. I want to speak few points. So the point is that the government already has suspended Nupur Sharma. So you can say that the grievances of the minority or the second largest community has already been addressed. The point is, we as a community, Muslim community, how we are going to tackle and address this issue of the blasphemy or hurt sentiment. Are we going to take the legal route, or we are going to call for the violence? And make no mistake that these people don't know that the Muslim society is not evolved enough right now. There are a lot of and many examples where you have seen that people get killed for the blasphemy. And I believe that the Islamist and communist ecosystem is right now weaponizing this blasphemy against their opponent. This is not only about the religion, there is politics going on.
I salute you, Ms. Ansari. Don't say too much. Don't say too much. You know the consequences. And we are worried today. All of us are worried today, because if you say too much and it is adjudged too much, then you might lose your head.
I am just talking as a Muslim. We have to come forward.
I'm talking as an Indian. I always speak as an Indian. There is a constitution and there is a law. Dr. Ranganathan, very quickly, before I wrap this up. No, don't abuse her now. Please lower everyone's fader. Not right. Yes. Dr. Ranganathan, very quickly, I need to move on. Yes.
Yes, just very quickly 2 points on what my good friend Mr. Atikur Rahman said. And I hope he doesn't interrupt me, because I'm going to be very kind and affectionate towards him. I'm going to compliment him. So, Mr. Rahman, please don't interrupt me. Let me, on first point, let me slightly correct you. When you said that on blasphemy, in the Quran, the mention is only that if you blaspheme against Allah. That's not correct. Because 33:57 says, and I quote, "Those who abuse Allah and His Messenger, Allah has cursed them in this world and the hereafter and prepared for them a humiliating punishment." And if you remember what Mr. Khomeini, in his fatwa against Rushdie, he interpreted abuse as waging a war. He said it clearly. And then follows 533 that says, indeed, the penalties for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and strive upon earth to cause corruption is none but that they be killed or crucified, or that hands and feet be cut off from opposite sides, and that they be exiled from the land. So you are factually wrong there. But let me come and compliment you right now. So please don't interrupt me. I'm going to compliment you. Rahul, I have to say this, that people like Mr. Atikur Rahman are, in this cruel world, the ideal Muslims. And I'll tell you why. Because even the Muslims don't listen to him. Mr. Atikur Rahman says that all those violent verses in the Quran that are against polytheists and Christians and Jews and apostates, infidels, are for the infidels and Christians and Jews and polytheists of that time. They don't apply to those billion-odd Christians and Hindus and polytheists of this time. But all the good verses, benevolent verses of Islam, of Quran, he says follows for everyone. So there is this dichotomy that he has to solve for himself. But the tragedy is that 1.8 billion Muslims don't believe Mr. Rahman.
Well,
they think that all those verses are the Kafirs apply to the Kafirs right now.
Sure. No, but Doctor, 1 second. At least we have in a panel of 3 of our brothers and sisters from the Muslim community, 2 that are at least agreeing with each other on these draconian punishments. And they are saying that let's follow the Indian law. So this is very important, viewers. Very, very important. I just hope the message goes out and no harm comes to you. I salute you as an Indian, as a constitutionalist. God bless.